Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name's Grady Miller. I'm the town manager, and I want to welcome all of you here tonight. We appreciate it. I think this is a project that is important to the council and the community potentially. So we wanted to make sure that you got all the facts tonight and to learn more about it. Before I get going, though, I would like to recognize some of our council members who are here tonight. If you just raise your hand, I know everyone probably knows who you guys are, but Mayor Bob Morris, if you raise your hand. Also sitting next to him is Councilmember Tom McGuire. And we have our vice mayor sitting up at the front row, Catherine Royer, and then also Joe Friedman sitting right here. So we're very pleased to have the council here. And also, what we're going to do is give you a PowerPoint presentation and then give you an opportunity to ask any questions you have. I also want to introduce some of the people sitting at the table because you may not be familiar with everybody. So Teresa Riza is our deputy town manager. She's off to my, I guess it would be my left, and you were right. And she is the co-project manager for this project. And then sitting next to her is Greg Zimmerman, and he's the architect who's been engaged for this project. And he'll be able to answer any technical questions or questions after the presentation. And then over to my right is our Chief Financial Officer, Sherry White, and she's here to answer any questions that people might have about like how much is this going to cost or whatever it might be. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, who's going to go ahead and give you the presentation.
Let me turn that on. All right. So we will take questions after the presentation here. I will try to go quickly, but not too quick. I know I can talk fast. So a little bit of background on this project. In 2023, Town Council and our senior staff, as part of our strategic plan preparation, we identified the town hall as a project that needed to be evaluated for redesign and redevelopment. This project has been budgeted in the last 2 fiscal year budgets, so this year will make it the last 3 years. 2024, staff engaged with Greg Zimmerman to evaluate our existing capacity and to prepare a space plan for potential options. Then moving on to 2025, a town council actually authorized the purchase of adjacent vacant property behind town hall. The proposed floor plan was developed under a contract with Greg, and it was reviewed at our 2025 council retreat. The council approved the CIP, including the balance that was owed on that property that was adjacent to town hall. Funding to complete the construction drawings and finalize the plans for the remodel expansion were part of the fiscal year 2026 budget. Now in 2026, staff has moved forward with Greg on design considerations and contracting with Wilming to get construction estimating. The space plan, as you can see, we have a larger, it's probably hard to see on the screen, but we do have a larger rendering in the back. Some of the options, we did look at adding potentially a second story to the existing building, expand, and then also expanding the existing building north towards the chambers or south. At that time, the property, we didn't own the property just yet. We did consider all the available options and costs with all those options and decided that expanding the footprint south and acquiring that parcel was the best option. So space needs and the adjacencies for staff were looked at and what would be the best and most efficient occupancy of the property. We also took into consideration more secure facility, energy efficiency, needed storage on site, as well as much needed meeting room space, along with adaptable office spaces and flex spaces for staff. We did participate, or our town staff did participate with our space needs and made suggestions, to continue to refine that design. The space plan, after we adjusted it, was presented to town council in our 2025 council retreat, and at that time also received unanimous support. So the current square footage of our town hall is the 7,750 square feet, with the proposed addition being another 5,000 square feet. Our staff and Greg worked with a surveyor and a civil engineer to begin designing the site improvements that would have to go with this. We are looking at some additional new parking and secure parking with access for town personnel. That would be additional 31 spaces, and that would be in the south area. Again, we have a larger rendering in the back of the room. We did take into consideration existing site conditions and anything that needed to be mitigated as far as stormwater drainage. So the exterior elevations, this is what's existing. It's just an example. Again, it might be a little bit hard to see, but then the new proposed elevation that was presented and selected by council just recently at our 2026 retreat is what is before you. Again, we do have a larger rendering in the back, where the look is a little more, it is a Spanish Mission look. And it was the best cost-effective option. So the project cost estimate, we did contract with Wilming, which is outside construction estimator, and they estimated our project at about 5.8 million. That would include construction, the fixtures, furnishing, the equipment, the temporary on-site office space that we would need to continue business, and then additional property improvements for the parking, the landscape, the hardscape, including the public entry, which we would be working on updating our front public entry so that it's a designated known. Right now, as you know, our challenge is we have a lot of doors. So no one knows exactly where to go when they first come to visit us. The costs are still preliminary. The construction design is nearing completion, so they can be adjusted, but we will be looking at additional cost avoidance and elimination. So we would definitely be looking to maintain what we're at or less. So benefits to public and to our staff would be the biggest one, I believe, one-stop customer service. So there will be a centralized customer service counter and lobby. The lobby will have public restrooms and meeting spaces for private discussions. If you've been in recently, you know we have to send people across the bridge back over here to use the restrooms, and it gets very loud in there when you have more than two people talking.
Also, if I can jump in too, it's very compartmentalized. The building, as you know, was originally designed as probably more like office suites. And part of the challenge is that we have, like, over on the right side or the west side of the building, we have like a customer service counter for development related and business licenses. The other side of the building are utility payments. I'm talking about having all that be in one area, but it's a large area, so it's not going to be interfering with one another, but they'll take the guesswork out of people coming in. And then when we're talking conference rooms, we're talking like little small 2 or 3 seat conference rooms. So people aren't hearing your business when you're trying to conduct, or if you have a water bill issue and you're trying to talk to somebody, you don't want the whole, everybody to hear what we're talking about as we're trying to assist you. So that's what we're talking about. We're not adding huge conference rooms everywhere. There will be some that will be added, but these are really primarily for the purpose of the public when they're there. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
No, I appreciate that. So additional conference room spaces, just to kind of add to that, we will have those spaces and flex offices to accommodate additional committees and meetings. We also are looking at a large multi-purpose room for function for employee training, employee meetings, and other uses that will also help us reduce costs of rental. So currently we rent space for these types of meetings and trainings at Holland Center or even the library. The layout will also help us with our staff adjacencies to enhance our inner office workflow and our communication. The outside of the building will be updated, and our front parking area, we're going to be working on improving the appearance, functionality, and accessibility to the public for that. And then just again, the new secured parking area for town vehicles and our employee parking in the back. So our next steps, the project would be programmed in our upcoming fiscal year 27 CIP budget, and are anticipating with any potential contingency, it's going to be 6.2 million. We're going to be working on finalizing the construction documents, and then the town will go through a traditional bid process this spring, issue a solicitation request for construction proposal, and council will review award construction contracts so that the construction can commence by July 1st. It will be, we call it 2 phases, but the idea will be we would do the addition first. Once that is in place, move as many people as we can to that area, bring in the basically mobile offices, and then do the remodel of the existing building with the goal to ensure no service interruption. And I did go fast. So right. All right. So with that, we will take questions. And Bo has a microphone. So we are recording, so that's why we're using the microphone so that. Yeah.
Thank you for holding this on.
It is, yes. Yeah.
Thank you for holding this seminar so we can take a peek at what's going on. Yeah. What happens with this space here? It's like you said, instead of holding seminars or conferences like this at the library or Holland Center, or when there's a reason to have a large function for a community, would this space be available to hold a larger amount of people?
So this is for governmental purpose only. So this room we've made available for other agencies or town-related business only. We're also looking at a subsequent project to update this room here.
Yeah.
And it's not programmed. We want to get through the next one first, because right now we felt like that was kind of the critical path with the overcrowding we have. There's also the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, which is at the very end of the building here. I believe, is it 5,000 square feet? They have about 5,000 square feet of building space over there, and they're looking at relocating somewhere else in this district within the next 5 years. We will not probably hold off this remodel for 5 years, but we're looking at that possibly being what I would call a community center or something that could be used for public use and rentals. We're not trying to compete, but there's enough, we think, of need in the community for something like that for different organizations and different groups and things like that. And it could be expanded beyond the 5,000. At this point, the idea is we have plenty of parking over there, and we could probably expand that out. But that's not an approved project, but I shared that concept with the council about a year ago when I heard that MCSO was considering relocating it could be up to 5 years from now.
I just had one more comment and I'll pass the microphone. Looking at this, when I go through town and I hear people talking to friends, and it's the one thing that always comes up is, why are those condominiums next to Kiwanis modern? We're a cowboy town. We're Western themed. I'm kind of confused as to why the Spanish motif. I mean, there's nothing to me that looks like Santa Barbara or something in California, Mission. And there's nothing that's Western about it. I'm not saying we have to look like Tombstone, but just something that has more of our character and personality as a visual. And here's our focus. So I don't know if that is possible at this point in time or not, but that's just my comment to you.
No, it's good feedback. And we did have originally 3 different designs. There was one I would call it. And again, keep in mind our problem is we're not starting from scratch. We're not tearing down the buildings because there's some value and cost savings in keeping the buildings. And I can let the architect get into this. He did try to come up with some rustic designs, but it looked not so good because he's trying to save the roof, trying to save the building, the overhang that we have. And it was really hard to get that certain look, and he had even a rough hewn like wood on the outside. But I'll let Greg kind
That would be a fire danger.
of could be, yeah. But he was looking at composite, like a composite material,
Yeah,
to your point.
and we did have that as one of our vernaculars. However, we're also looking at longevity, and we're looking at continued maintenance and budgets throughout the next 10 years. And an example I could give maybe is some of the buildings that you do see that have that Western theme. They're a very high maintenance product, unless you go with a composite or something like that. And to Grady's point of just keeping the bones of the building that we have and not tearing it down, it would have been a major modification to go through and just to get that look. And I look at Stagecoach Village, for instance, and I look at the materials there, and I'm watching it deteriorate over time. And the maintenance, especially with a public building, I didn't want to introduce a product that I knew would be part of your budget every year to maintain it. Part of the reason why we really took a hard look at the existing building was the fact that we were saving a considerable amount of money in infrastructure, the water, the sewer, the electrical system, everything. We wanted to recapture that and not have to spend it again. And in my experiences as well, we put that kind of I would have loved to have had an old town gun smoke kind of thing, if you will. But the maintenance on that kind of a building and converting what we had into that, it would have been very close to a demolition to make that happen. Just tearing everything out except the box.
Didn't mean to do a whole overhaul.
Oh, no.
Those are very good comments, and that's why we're having the meeting. If there's anything we can incorporate, hitching post, there might be some other, like, right now we don't have like a proper entrance into the complex here, and we don't have like what I would call a monument sign, or so those are opportunities to pull that together so it ties with the rest of the town. You're absolutely right. And landscaping is another thing. Landscaping in front of the complex here, we are really bad examples of the rest of the community. So we're going to try to have that rehab so it looks much more attractive to the community, because it looks really sorry when you look in front of our complex here.
I have, is it on? Good. In the run up to this, that you've had plenty of staff input and wonderful work from the architect, but there wasn't much input from the citizens. And I can tell you exactly why there wasn't that kind of input. You didn't have a place to have the meetings. When I look around here, I see a number of people who have been on volunteers on committees with me. And we are now all recognized at Janie's and the Grotto and a number of other places where we held all of our meetings, because there wasn't a place. There is exactly one meeting room that I've ever seen in that building. So whatever you have right now, you don't have enough. I am not qualified to tell you exactly what you need, but I can tell you that when we had a committee of 15, obviously you need a room big enough for 15 people. This was the only one. And then we broke out into working groups that were 5 each. Now, had those meetings of the working groups happened in here, then we could have had staff drop in. And it wouldn't have looked like, oh, I'm taking the afternoon off to go hang out at Janie's with the guys. Yeah, I mean, it would have been faster and better. And I believe that in a lot of ways, the town is going to face bigger problems in the future, not smaller problems. And I think committees like those that you've put together may become more of a thing. I suspect that you may end up even finding that as you sell this to the community, that it might be a good way to go about doing that. But right now you don't have a place to put them. I do know that there were several times we wanted to try and schedule things, and because this is the only place it would fit, we had to push dates out into the future, sometimes by several weeks.
Yeah, because we have boards and commissions, court, council.
This is a heavily used room. And I'd also want to mention that, and as Stacy said, so we do the state of the town but the town doesn't have a location big enough to host it. We have to go, the library is a wonderful place and I'm thrilled with that, or we have to leave town and go to Scottsdale and find a place to do things there. So I, I, I wouldn't again critique the plan here, but I applaud the idea that you are at least thinking about, how you need to grow. I am also thinking about, these are pretty good times right now, and I am so appreciative that you want to keep the cost of maintaining this building down, because you buy yourself a dog, you got to feed it. And I want to make sure that we can continue to operate this thing. My final question is, are we financing this, or is this coming out of cash?
We have budgeted this for the last couple of years in the capital budget, but I'll turn it over to our chief financial officer.
So the town has set aside capital reserve money, and there's adequate capital reserves to be able to cover this project. I did a long range forecast for council back in last month in February, and showed that there was adequate funding with the capital reserves to be able to cover this and other capital projects.
Mine's just a comment. I have been coming into that building since the 90s, when there was less than half the staff. There were big empty rooms that we had art shows in there when we did the Cave Creek Film and Art Festival. And I've watched it get tighter and tighter and fuller and fuller. And I'm so glad that you have been planning this, because I come out of corporate America way back when, and management. So I know how critical the well-being, the morale, the good use of time and effort. I know what you're doing is so much more important than people are going to think first when they hear about remodel money spent. It's the most valuable thing you could do to keep our town. I'm so impressed with our town compared to all the other towns. We have volunteer council that comes from the heart all the time. We have staff that I've watched the sacrifices made over the years, going from 5 days to 4 days to cutting staff and bringing back staff. It just amazes me that this little tiny town out here on the fringe, is just so good at what we do. And you all are so good at making it right for all of us. So go forward. Anything I can do to make sure that the people who need to know how great this is. I happen to love the look. I get it. It's not Tombstone, but I still love the look. Whatever you can do to make it fit what everybody else wants, I support that. But I love it that it's practically as maintenance free as you can get. That's so important. What Bill said about buy a dog, you got to feed it. I love that line. I'm going to keep it. Thanks.
Can we talk about the origins of this building? Greg, particularly, you might know how old this building is, how it's expanded over the years, what we're keeping versus what we have to start over.
Certainly. I'm going to take a guess at it being just based on the style of the materials and stuff. I'm thinking somewhere in the early 80s. Someone might know the date on that, but regardless of that, since it's been a municipal building, there have been the expansions that's been mentioned, and the moving around and that kind of thing. Just going up into the attic or the ceiling space, you can see that's a history lesson in itself, because there's cords and wires and things that are long since abandoned, and there's been a multitude of adjustments. And I think what the town has done very successfully up until recently is being able to do with what they've got. But at this point in time, the building is not sprinklered. Of course, we mandate that be the case in any project anyone else does. And that is also part of the budget to bring it up to code. But the use and the layout, what I found I was happy about was when we went up there, there are no columns, there are no bearing walls. So once again, I'm looking at cost. It's not going to cost as much to reallocate the space in there, because we don't have to dodge columns and beams and things of that nature. So it was a real clean and terms of cost, inexpensive based on what it could have been. But as far as the history of the building, it's masonry on three sides with a frame along the front, the north face. And that's mostly because when it was used, I think it allowed people to go and change windows and doors and things like that without cutting into, into masonry. But that's the history of it as I know it. All four sides of the exterior walls we're able to keep. I did an inspection on the roof, and we're actually able to keep the truss system and the roof system, with the exception of taking it down to substrate and putting a new foam roofing coating on it. But we essentially are keeping the building slab, walls, roof trusses, and up to the deck. With regard to the HVAC, the units are old enough and they need to be replaced, but we're able to extend plumbing to the new expansion without having to dig new lines, new mains. We're going to upsize the power, or the electrical system, the SES panel it's called, only because there's more space. But the trenching out to transformers and all of that it costs an enormous amount of money to do, we've saved that. So the expansion is going to be introduced into the existing infrastructure. Oh, I would say it'd be $750,000. That doesn't include not that I'm not sure how the town would do its own permitting, but engineering, paying paying architects and engineers to run those infrastructures, and the A&E costs alone to get a permit. We're just
avoiding like if the walls were all torn down and redone, that would be free course.
The slab and the roof system. I know that roof system, if we were to the reason we didn't go 2 stories, because the roof trusses were in such good shape and they have a natural slope to them for drainage. It'd be a shame to rip them off just to put a second floor on them. And that's, there's a $350,000 roof with the trusses, the bearings, the labor, everything, and the trusses, or the decking. So we saved a considerable amount of money. And not because we were just trying to save money, but the building warranted that. It really is going to be there for another, 100 years.
In terms of energy efficiency, what will we save by putting in new windows and doors and new HVAC?
If you can imagine the SEER rating of the units that are there now, I think they're like 2, no, I'm kidding, 10. But the new units that we're putting in are going to be 15 SEER. I'm assuming they're going to be 15 SEER. There's no reason why not. We're going to be putting in dual glaze windows, and also the fenestration. If you notice along the front, it's all just mostly glass. And even though there's a canopy there, that's all penetrate. That's all just heat gain. We're doing windows that are going to be about 4 feet off the ground, with the same head height. So it's going to have a different look to it. But at the same time, we're cutting the openings out of the building by about 40%. And given the fact that the insulation that I inspected, I don't think we have to go up in the ceiling and we can stay with the insulation we have. We're going to be doing a new grid system for the drop ceilings. But with the HVAC and with the new window systems, I've never seen what the utility bills are for this building as it exists, but I can't imagine that is a small number given what I've seen. And we're going to be seeing an incredible reduction. I would even go on record to say that it's probably going to be less even with the extra 5,000 square feet, because this is a very old building and technology wasn't up to speed at the time. It probably had, yeah.
Improving the security for our employees.
Well, the security system as it is right now has been kind of an adept to what we have, but the exterior doors and things of that nature are going to naturally be a more secure door, metal doors, that kind of thing. And the security with the windows, depending if we have a budget in for tempered windows and that kind of thing, people are not going to have as many doors to kick in. we're getting rid of a lot of the doors, and that was part of the confusion of people coming and going. They didn't know what door to go into. So we have defined a sense of entry and a sense of exit. It's well monitored. It's being it can be viewed by not only the staff and utilities, but also the staff and planning. Everyone can see people coming and going. So there's not going to be somebody just meandering down the hallway just simply by the plan. We have an open bullpen design that if someone enters the room, you're going to know they're there. So no surprises with unauthorized personnel wandering the hallways
Yeah,
anymore.
there's controlled access points once people get in the building, that they're not going to just be able to wander around the building. The other thing is we're going to have card key access into the building. So very easy if we have a employee that is separated or terminated, we just shut that off digitally, and then that person has no more access to the building. The back lot will be a much more secure lot than we have currently, for both employees, but also for town vehicles that are parked there, 24/7. This parking lot, we're also going to improve for the public. So it's better lit at night, and also be more attractive, but also safer for them as well. And then clearly have a very clearly delineated entrance to the building that they will see directly from the parking lot, so they don't have to wander around. If they wish to, they can, but they'll very clearly know where the entrance into the building is. And we're looking at having a camera system at major points of entry. Yeah.
And after hours, the new parking lot will be gated. So there won't be people coming and using it on unauthorized parking and what have you, wandering around. They're not going to be able to vehicularly go in there.
Yeah,
after
we're
hours.
currently having issues with the business next door to us that is parking excess vehicles after hours on weekends and such. So anyways.
I think most of my questions just got asked. Thank you. And I think you just answered another one just then, but it seems like the baseline is not zero. The building obviously suffers from benign neglect. I'll call it that. And so it's not up to code. The air conditioners are not good. So there's no security. The parking is a hash behind the building. It's a mess. All of this is obvious. So I think it might be helpful if we understood that, if we just did the minimum to make the thing work, it's like to make plumbing work, then that the price tag might be a little bit easier to understand. I think people are looking at 5,000 square feet. How does that cost $5 million? Well, there's a big parking lot. There is a lot of other, a remodel that happens. There is a lot of other things. I think maybe if you can generate some additional information about, the sequences of how these expenses occur, that it might be a little bit more understandable.
Those are very good points, Bill. Thank you.
And to your point, I'm not sure that we pointed this out clear enough, but the existing building, the entire floor plan is repurposed.
Yes.
And therefore, it's not just the additional 5,000, but it's the 7,500 square feet of space planning, new grids, new partitions, IT, everything will be brought up to speed on that as well.
I just wanted to add my support to this project. I have in town, one of which was with the director, and we were in a closet, no window. So to get the best out of our staff, our town staff, I think that they definitely need the space to do their job and to be able to recruit the best in the business. So with that being said, I wanted to follow up on the financial component, the capital reserve. There's comments in the community about, is this taking money away from other big projects, water, other things that might be a high priority? Could you speak to that to clear some?
So with governmental accounting, we separate the money based off of what purposes it's used for. And so this is general capital reserves for some of the general projects that we do that has been set aside. So it's not set aside for utility projects. And What we have for utilities is a plan of debt financing projects so that we're not having spikes in, okay, now we have this really large project, so that means rates would have to be really high, and now we don't have as much. When you do the debt financing, it evens out the rates across time.
Hi. I have a question regarding the time frame that's going to be allotted for this project. So from beginning to end, it's going to take X amount of days, months, years. And just in my experience, whoever ends up with this contract, they should probably know what that time frame is, because I've seen projects go. I used to do a little bit of this stuff, and I've seen them go so far over schedule, and that's very costly. That's costly to our government that's waiting for this, and it's also costly because of materials and labor and everything else. So.
Correct. So I can speak to that a little bit and Greg will add to it, but the goal would be that we'd be in contract with whoever it is by July 1 and actually start with an 18-month turnaround. So I know that's ambitious, but that would be the goal, and that would be what we would also be presenting to any potential contractors.
Oh, and with regard to what I've been retained to do is we will be doing construction administration, turning around RFIs, requests for information. And I'm local, so it's not like they have to wait 3 days to get an answer.
And you bring up a really good point. I've been involved in communities that have built fire stations and theaters and things like that, community theaters. And we build in often a performance contract that basically there's some potential for liquidated damages if they're not meeting major milestones, or if there's delays or whatever, to protect our interests. So we'll be working very closely with our town attorney. We'll put that on the front end so they're aware of what the contract terms are. But that's how you manage that. And it's the way that most municipalities are handling projects like this.
And just as an adjunct, part of the design with my design team is we're selecting materials and any items of construction that do not require a long lead item, that are not troublesome to find. We're not looking for something that's going to take a manufacturer or a fabrication period that's going to throw us off. This is all something that can just be done with quality construction. And some of the things will be done in what they call a controlled environment in a shop somewhere and brought out. For most of it, it'll be field built, and we won't be waiting for. I'll tell you that the electrical system box is the one I keep my eye on, because sometimes those are 13, 14 weeks in advance. But we design it well enough to where if we're able to, we'll order that and have that stored.
Good question.
Did I see that Wilming is a proposed contractor for this?
So they built the second fire station. So we're familiar with them. They were the ones that provided the estimation to the professional estimators for the project. If they wish to bid, that will be, it's not a guarantee, but they're welcome.
It is worth noting that they completed that well ahead of schedule and over $300,000 under budget.
That's true. Yes.
So it actually the second fire station.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they actually presented a check at their.
They did,
Yeah.
and Wilming did not do the first fire station.
Correct. Well, we did not do the first.
So happy to hear that we're going to be spending some time on the landscape out front. And not to sound too hyperbolic, but this is the Cave Creek's people's house. So as much as I can appreciate focusing on budget, keeping it under budget, making sure that our budget, and we're being very sensible with the dollars, spending, I don't know how much, I know it's going to be more. I don't know how much more to make it look Western versus, and I love Santa Barbara, but I think your point hits. We're not Santa Barbara. And so I think there's, the town has done such a great job with some beautification efforts. We get to experience those every day as we drive through town and look at our awesome medians that are sprouting wildflowers. That's probably a cost that some people would say isn't worth it. I think it's beyond worth it. So I would just encourage, if it's going to be more, to make it look Western versus Spanish. To me, it would be an investment that I think the town could definitely rally behind and accept. So, but I'm all for the better location and growing it, because as it's been talked about, the pride that employees have, recruiting employees, having them be able, we're asking the staff to do big things for us, and then we then put them into an overcrowded space, and those two things just don't add up. So they've done it for a long time, and I'm happy to see that we're going to expand and have a beautiful building that we'll all be able to take advantage of as a community. So thanks.
Those are good comments. And the other thing that we didn't really touch upon, but there are some plans, as we talked about, for this complex on this side, that one of the things that Greg Zimmerman the architect, took into consideration is that one of the problems you see with government buildings, you see it with the state in particular, you go to the universities, it's a mishmash of architectural styles. You can look at the eras when these things were built. So whatever we finalize it on, he has looked at trying to match up the best he can, because this is going to be another potential retrofit to match up this building in the future. Not only will we be doing the improvements on the interior, but on the outside. And so we got to be very careful with whatever we do on that building, that it's easily adaptable over here. And that's another cost consideration. And so I'm not saying it can't be can't look like, Western, because I do like the look that our town has. It makes it very unique to all these other towns or cities in the valley. But those are considerations we have to take in. But I do appreciate all the points you brought up, and Stacy as well, bringing up the point about trying to have it look more Western. I mean, we'll try to see what we can do to incorporate that, given the limitations that we have to save money.
You describe the architectural style of the buildings as they are right now, early shopping mall?
You beat me to it. The early American bashes. I think this was an office building. And one of the biggest struggles I think we all had was, we've got this beautiful colonnade of covered space. To tear that off and start moving it towards a Western theme, whether you're using a corrugated metal or you're not doing anything at all, and it's just the batten board kind of really, really authentic Western theme. We were looking at a budget that was starting to tip, and at the same time, there was trying to utilize what we had, and that is if we were to take that colonnade and build it, we're talking a couple $100,000 of material there that we're just ripping off just to change the vernacular. I think and this is a term that I use, I think we can dirty that up, that design, to make it look more like a Western, Southwestern, but not something in that's in Santa Barbara, because that's a very good description of the design. And with regard to sometimes the devil's in the details when it comes to, and I even heard the term hitching post or wagon wheel. Believe it or not, there's some of that kind of vernacular incorporated in there, changes the look of that building considerably. And I think we should look at that.
Okay, so
No, it's going to be, it'll be Xeriscape for sure.
anyway, is this on? Okay, good, good. So anyway, when we had the town retreat, we were only given a couple options. Do you like this option? Do you like that option? I'm going to tell you, for the record, I suggested Alamo, like the Alamo, which is a little bit more southwestern, but maybe you could incorporate that into our grand entrance that people can see. Because just imagine if we had the Alamo out there now, everybody'd know right where to go.
I'm laughing because he said, remember the Alamo. Not your idea.
I did say.
Okay. So, in looking at buildings, I've been in construction for over 40 years. In looking at buildings, we look at structure and then we look at the exterior components here that have most of the conversation is what we would call the gingerbread. It's the part you can easily choose, which would be, in our case, I've heard metal roof, as this what we call sandcast pinto tiles with the mud chink. For part of my lifetime, I worked in residential housing, and I can tell you these tiles that I was working on were on a golf course. These tiles are literally on their way back to the Gulf of Mexico from the day they get to the U.S. I would never recommend them for a home. I would never recommend them for a commercial building. What you're counting on stopping the water leak is the underlay. So whatever you have, tiles is what you're keeping the water out with, and you're hoping that it seals the nails that hold the tiles up. On the foam roof that was mentioned, made a lot of money over the decades on foam roofs because we have bees, cutter bees, we have ants that the cutter bees and the birds follow. We have tree branches that drop leaves. The foam roofs typically aren't flat, so they pond, they puddle. They end up creating maintenance nightmares for people that over time become experts because foam roofs really aren't the best Arizona product. What they were originally made, foam roofing was originally made to take dips out of a roof, and when the contractors realized that you could spray that over the whole roof and actually get away with not putting down a real roof, all they had to do was convince the banks to lend against it, and then they had a product that they could be in and out of a job site very quickly and get their money, and then they basically pass their problems on to the homeowner. And believe me, anybody who owns a foam roof, if you're not inspecting it once a year for cutter bees, ants, the woodpeckers love them, you're not taking care of your house. One of the things that I see that I would like to see implemented or considered is a set of public restrooms that are available for the public to use using the existing parking lot that we currently use. One of the problems I have with the interpretation that these bathrooms will be public restrooms or the fact that the town hall's literally not open during the week as much as it's closed. So I could see a huge benefit in meeting one of the strategic goals that we've had on the town's strategic plans for as long as we've been planning, is a set of bathrooms on this end of town that are open from, time the sun comes up till at least the sun goes down 7 days a week. And I think with the modern technology and security, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, but I see this corner next to the electric vehicle charging station, potentially have a little dog walk area. You have a break spot. That would be a safe spot. It would be along the main drag there. You could light it proportionately for the use, and you could really provide a town benefit that we actually need with the consideration of this remodel. I am in support of at least doing the portion of the work that has been proposed for the main building. I don't like the sequencing because what I can see happening is that we blow through the $6.2 million and there's still major components that we need to finish the back side of the building, the 5,000 square foot side. I would actually flip the schedule on the phasing. I would tear into this first, and I did this with my last employer where we took full staffs, we put them in temporary buildings. It works. It is something that can be done, and we could have a front office modular out here in the parking lot that would accept anybody coming in the parking area just like they would today. You would still have basically this approach where you have somebody walking into a modular
and they would be greeted by a town staff person, and then they would use the intercom system to get whoever up there or send them back to the modulars that would be on the south side of the building. I'm very disappointed with this east-west layout. I know that Luke had mentioned in one of the town meetings that I attended with the offsite, that the consideration has been to consider the most south orientation, but we didn't really specify what kept us from letting this building out that would make it more energy efficient, which would be the north-south orientation. I understand that this wall would face another wall, but we have uses in our buildings like the storage room here, the storage room there, the gun, what is that? Marshall's gun storage. I don't know why those walls need to be on exterior walls. To me, it doesn't make sense that you would have some of these things. The file storage room over here that's got a window to the west doesn't make sense to me that that's not an interior office space. So I think some things, many more things could have been done had the public been engaged earlier. I'm obviously disappointed that it took from 2023 till today to have your first public airing of your concepts. And I think that, I guess the question I'd like to know is, when was the time to make a difference on this project? I hear about 2023, I hear about 2024. Looking at the lot next door, when I heard that entire presentation made by the planning director on the purchase of the lot next door, there was no mention of this is where we're going to put our building expansion. It was to buy the parking lot next door. That was the hook, line, and sinker for that purchase of that property. There was no mention of this during that time. So for people sitting here thinking, well, I'm a naysayer. No, I'm a truth teller. We had the chance to talk about this since 2023 in budgets. And this is the first time we're going to mention it to the public. This is the first time we've seen a full scale drawing of this. As a reminder, I will tell you that I believe the fire station was over budget 100%, our fire station. And I think that's true. And the reason why was because we wanted to save the back wall. So I would caution you trying to save $750,000 on a $6 million project when it comes to cost. It can be a trap. If you looked at a second story and you looked at a $300,000 deferment on cost, I'm not going to try to tell you or redesign your project. I'm just going to say that doesn't sound like that big of an expense if you're going to take part of the trusses out or all of the trusses out and get a full second floor, get a bigger footprint. I understand with ADA, things can be very hard to accomplish that you better do on second stories. The current building is absolutely underutilized because of our short work week. Absolutely underutilized. The fact that we don't have enough conference room can often not hear enough. If you add 1 day a week, the time that staff is here, you're opening up more opportunities for the rooms that you do have to utilize for conference meetings. I also noticed that in the new proposed plan, which I do apply, a lot of this I really like. The 5 or 6 conference rooms that are in the new plan really overwhelm the person when we know that there's basically 1 now. Do we need 5 times the conference rooms in the town of Cave Creek? I don't know. I haven't seen the space study analysis that was done. I'm sure the project, one of the co-managers could tell us about the project in terms of that space study. Are these size offices that are being proposed going to be big enough for the directors? Or was there an analysis done on the building science of this, saving this 60-year-old building that makes sense when it comes to Keeping the old insulation in this building, I can tell you, I've been up in some old attics. I wouldn't keep the old insulation if I was tearing the building out. I would probably pull it out and let them spray foam up in there if the plywood's good. You could get into this roof right here and find out that in this old of a building, along with the deferred maintenance, nobody did termite inspections, just nobody owned it. It was owned by the community, it was owned by the town in the last 25, 30 years. So if we had termites, yeah, we got termites, it's Arizona. But what damage could be up in that ceiling, or up in those rafters, or in these walls that are covered up right now that we'll find out about, but that, are we really budgeted for that? Big consideration is the existing trees along the north front for the building. What are we doing with those? Are we saving all those trees, or are they slated to be removed and come out? Like this front, I don't see where our trees are. Are they scheduled to come out, or are we starting with new trees and picking out the trees? I can answer that.
Basically reformatting the front few parking spaces there in an effort to save all of those trees. There's no trees on the south lot except for the west side, and we jogged the building in to preserve as many as we could. I do not know, but I do know that the major mature trees we were able to keep by shifting as you can see there, it doesn't do a complete L shape. It dog legs in about 6 or 8 feet
Right here.
right there, and that's where we determined that where the trees can be saved. That was the reason the building moved over. So there was some consideration for the existing mature vegetation.
I noticed things like the sun exposure on these windows. Why is this roof line not out far enough to stop the sun from hitting me? Because I have awning. I know that the awning doesn't protect the window from the sun actually when it's most needed on the western side.
Isn't that where the trees are? I thought the trees are shading that side of the building.
Trees got to be down 30 feet away, according to our fire desires.
I want to address a couple things you brought up. I can't remember all of them, but I do want to bring up a couple things. So Greg Zimmerman worked with us on the space study, and he developed and utilized what is kind of considered what I would call industry standards for office space. For certain levels of people, this is the space. Everybody has the same amount of space. You mentioned conference rooms. Conference rooms, if you notice, they're near some areas that are like offices. Not the huge one, but the smaller ones. And they could be converted if there was a need for us to convert to an office space. So there's a lot of flexibility that has been thought about in this design. Do you want to talk about the window and the natural light and the records room?
Well, we had that being on the west side, that is true, but also that's where a lot of the vegetation is. And we've got, I think, 6 or 7 windows there, and they also have awnings. But if you did, and I didn't do renderings and Solstice, studies on them, but I'm sure the sun would hit one of those, hit the windows at one time or so. But we don't have them completely exposed to to the western sun. And if you notice that the topography itself also aids us in shielding it from the sun as well. I can imagine that if that building was at elevation and we had a clear area, no mountains, no hills or anything, where you had the sun coming right down in your eyes, that would have been a consideration, but we don't in that location.
While you're addressing the western sun on these windows idea and the eastern sun on these windows, could you go over what the thought process was? Why we're not basically mirroring this building along this way? Was there something doing with the configuration of the parking, or savings, some natural feature? Or
Well, the
drainage?
consideration of the parking was because we access from the south, and the second one was that we didn't want to lose some of the existing openings that we have on the south side of the building. We redesigned the existing space
So this
to
one-
be, yeah, to be able to utilize those, and then
Which is cut right into whatever it is, cinder block or
masonry, yeah.
masonry.
But
And
that
then
being said, with that opening, if your desire was to continue using it, this could have had some other kind of courtyard approach, or it could have had a connecting point to the southernmost part of the addition.
I guess my response as an architect is that there are several solutions.
Thank
We
you.
chose this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your candor.
Mhm.
And what I'm saying from development builder sense is this is not energy efficient in so many ways. It insults me.
Oh, I'm sorry it
Without
insults
me-
you.
Without me saying something about it. I mean,
Well,
I'm
you,
getting it off of my chest, if you guys can hear it. I would think the goal would be to make it environmentally sustainable for that 20, 30 years you think you want to have it go. And that would be as you use materials that don't need maintenance, exactly what you're saying. And you're using insulative values that make it work the best. And you're using orientation of the building, primarily number one, to make it the best value for the community. So didn't mean to hurt any feelings. I know I touched on some sore spots, but this is one area where, and including moving people from their existing offices into temporary trailers, having remodels done, having new buildings done, that is something I'm experienced at, and I thought I could offer that to my community.
I think you might have missed it, but that's what we are planning on, at least for the front office staff to deal with the public. So I think you might have missed that at the very beginning.
No, what I thought was, they said, go build a new building first.
But we can't have our public accessing that. So that's what we're trying to say is we had planned on having modular buildings. That's always been part of the budget for this project.
They would be, our community would be very understanding of the temporary
Right.
stuff.
That is
We would all endure this together. But the idea of flipping the phasing concerns me because I can see blowing through the $6 million and needing 2, 3 more because of what we found when we tried to save something, and it didn't work out so good. It happened on the fire station, and it's so easy to do in Arizona because you don't know what's creeping along in your building until you actually got it. You get back down to the bones. All right, enough from me.
Thank you, Bo. I'm seeing support we've got here, and also seeing a lack of people coming in and raising concerns. I think that there is a vote of confidence that we see among most of the people that are here, and I'm really glad to see the support of the community.
I think what I'd like the residents to think of is that we're trying to do what we can to come up with a office building that they can be proud of. It'll be a point of pride for the community. And that will be something that will be able to endure for many years. I've even asked for, there's a thing called integral paint, but it's basically stucco that has the paint in it that's integral. So it will have a very long life. So we're not having to paint the building, every 8 to 10 years. So those are things that we're trying to do on the design considerations. And when we have this bid out, that we just want to have as low maintenance as possible on the building. We also want to make sure that as times change and we've seen what's happened with technology, we want to make sure we have what I would call cable runs or cable trays built in, because as everybody knows, technology is very important for the modern workplace. And so we wanted to also make sure that that's there, and also that everybody's now using, as you know, virtual meetings, and we want to make sure we have coax and cable runs and everything possible to be what I want to say modern proof, so that as things modernize and change, we're there. The other thing that we didn't really talk about is if you go into the building now, the heating and ventilation system, the ductwork is really meant for the building what was originally built. And so you go to the conference room, and in the conference room, think about it, we've walled in office areas and such and created office areas, conference room. And that was originally just like an office suite, one big office suite that ductwork covered. This is going to be a lot more efficient. It will be zoned. We're going to have high SEER efficient heat pumps that will be in the building. We're going to have insulation, really well insulated second building as well. So while we don't know what the utility costs are, Greg doesn't want to go out on a limb and just make this statement, but in talking to him, he believes that we can ventilate and heat, and our power bill will be very comparable to what we're paying today for almost twice the square footage. So I think that's really important, because as we're going into the future, there's probably going to be some lean times, and we don't want to be spending more money on things like utilities that you really don't have a show for your investment on that. So we really appreciate all of you being here tonight. If there's any other questions, or if you want to hang around and ask any questions as you're looking at these. The one thing I just wanted to point out, the illustration in the middle of the design, the exterior design, all those color features on the left doesn't mean that's what that's going to look like. Those are just showing, like, as an example, the portico area, the second picture to the on the left side on the bottom, is showing you basically some concepts and images on how that might be able to be looked. But he was trying to come up with concepts so that you can kind of picture his renderings that he drew and how they might fit. So I think we've left, or will be leaving tonight's meeting with some really good feedback on design considerations. I know we're kind of limited with building elements and trying to save what we can. And also for this project here, when we eventually do it, that we can easily adapt what we did over here so it all meshes and matches. But I think we're leaving loud and clear that there's a desire to have something that looks Cave Creek-like, that it is, if not unique to itself, it definitely has something that harkens to our Western heritage. So I think we need to make sure that what we do does that. And we can do that with fixtures, finishes, and even design modifications. So thank you for bringing those to our attention. We'll also take other comments into consideration as well that we've heard. I'm sorry, you had another point. No, I'm done.
To Greg, I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with your work, either locally or regionally. And I was wondering if you could tell us some of your buildings that you've built so we could go by and drive by and assess for ourselves the quality of your work.
Locally, the Retablo used to be a school on the corner of Cave Creek and Schoolhouse. I did the remodeling design for that turned it into the Retablo imports. Trying to keep you local here. A lot of the interior stuff, like the Mountain View Pub and things of that nature, are mine. The apartments, I know I get a lot for this, but the apartments that are under construction on Galloway Wash, I think there's a website up there that has some of the designs on it, and I'd be happy to send you. I'm not a real big believer in a website, believe it or not, because my history for me has shown that people call and say, "Can you remodel my garage?" I found you on a website. I think that when I contact certain clients, I will send them a custom package that shows some of the stuff that we've done. But we've been in practice in Carefree, but mostly Scottsdale for 35 years. And we're licensed, obviously, registered in Arizona and in Washington State. We've done multifamily, commercial, We do the majority of the VA clinics for the federal government in every state that they have us go to. And we are also, the Fairmount Hotel tennis cottages, that one came to mind when I was speaking. And the Sheraton Timeshare Resort out on Hayden. Those are some local places you can check out. But we've done multifamily, a lot of multifamily over the last 35 years, a lot of custom homes, but mostly we've been doing a commercial. And there's a project that's going to be submitted to the town, is on the same side of the road as the Retablo, where they have all the metal horses and stuff like that. That's going to be a mixed use project with a restaurant pad and or a restaurant building. 5 luxury apartments on the second floor, but about 14,000 feet of retail. And it's a small, it's like a Spanish village that's all conducted, wedding venue and a chapel. We're gonna settle that dispute.
It's public art.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so anyway, I wanted to say thank you myself. I think that you guys have put an incredible amount of time into this. I spoke to a resident this morning who's lived here about 37 years now. And she asked me who the architect was on this, and I told her she kind of knew already, but she wasn't sure. And she had nothing but high marks for Zimmerman here. So I wanted to say that. And also, there is a person in the room who came in a little late, but Cynthia Driscoll, a councilwoman, might know what this building was originally since she's been here a while.
Right on the front end of it there. But it had a varied life before the town took it.
Well, nobody knew it before you came in there trying to figure out what it was.
That's helpful, thank you.
That's right.
No, that wasn't it. Okay, well, we appreciate it, and we're gonna obviously have more work to do, and we'll get more information out on this. But thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate both feedback and constructive comments. It was very helpful.